Hey all, Pixel here in Probable Garage. We're back on the Powercar Thunderbird Jr. In particular, I figured out what I'm doing, which is I don't fit in it. I really don't want to cut that body up to sort of jankily make myself kind of fit, maybe sort of. Mostly it's going to involve a bunch of fiberglass work I don't want to do. So what I've decided is I'm building a go-kart for a kid, and then once I've built it, if Kiddo still fits in it, which actually I don't think she's gonna, because she's almost the same height as my partner, it's just gonna get sold on. I'm gonna build the body out, make it look nice, do the thing, whatnot, and then I'm just gonna sell it, put some more money back into the Dumb Idea Fund. I'm pretty sure that I can break even at the very minimum, probably turn a profit on it. To that end, because I'm building a car for a kid, I've made one slight change. That one change is we're going with the smaller motor. That's the smallest engine they sell at Harbor Freight. It's the 3 horsepower. There's 2 reasons for this. One, since I'm not keeping it, I want to keep the nicer motor to put on my snowblower this winter. And 2, this motor is actually physically smaller. I was looking into it in the store, and this motor is, I thought it was just a different bore in the same block, but it is a physically smaller motor, which helps my whole packaging situation. The irony, of course, being I ordered the clutch that would fit that other motor. I think this one's going to take the smaller clutch that I misordered. Whatever. So what we're going to do, I'm going to get that back up on the bench. I got to clean all this stuff from the other project I'm currently working on. Also, we got to get the front steering finished. That kind of stalled out because of the whole problem I found, but we're going to get into it. All right, so we got this up here. The front is bricked up so that it's close to being where it should be. It should be a tiny bit more, but it's close enough. In the rear, I did some disassembly on this motor, and holy cow, I should have been using this one from the start. So many of the problems I was having with the motor, or concerns I was having with the motor, just don't exist on this one. Fuel tank's still going to have to be moved, that's normal. Airbox doesn't have to be changed, already lower than the top of the motor, already doesn't stick out farther than the motor. And then exhaust, round port, which means that will fit there. And then, I haven't taken it apart yet, but there's 3 bolts here, so it's entirely possible I may be able to put the exhaust here. Like, is that the best choice heat-wise? Probably not, but we can at least experiment with that. I'm still going to have to build an extension, like a tailpipe, because I still want to get the fumes out from under the car, but this looks like it may take way. I mean, if nothing else, even if this is unusable, having this bit that comes down that I can then build off of, still massively easier. And then this doesn't stick up as high, including the motor just being smaller. It doesn't have that pull-off thing. So this motor, way more compact, fits way better if you've got a packaging issue and you don't care about it being all that fast, which I don't. So I'm going to let's play with that exhaust a little bit, see, just out of curiosity. And then we're going to fit the clutch up and start trying to figure out our mounting location. All right, well, that's not going to work. I didn't realize how much is kicked back, so that kind of hangs in the wrong place. But this is close, and I could potentially, again, slice this off over here, add a bit of pipe that straightens this out and moves it down. But already, like, just for testing purposes, I can probably just run it with this for short periods of time, and that should be just fine, which is already better than I was before. So I don't have to weld an exhaust before I can even fire the motor. Alright, so I brought this up in a video ages ago. Get yourself a set of these. They're amazing. These are thread checkers, except that each one's got, you know, an inside and an outside, and they're on a chain, so I can take like this one and test fit it. Then I can take the next one and test fit it. And you can do this like in engine compartments, in other awkward places where you could never get the big square ones. So even if it's a size you don't have a bolt of, you still can find that out. Okay, so M8125, M81. So it doesn't look like it's metric, even though it's a metric motor. I guess that kind of sort of makes sense if you're building it as a replacement for older motors. Yep, there we go. 5/16 by 24 appears to fit. Let me grab one of those. All right, clutch is now on. I was right. It's the one. I ended up putting a couple of the bushings that I bought for the wheels on the back because it was a little bit shorter than the shaft. So that actually pushes it this way a little bit, which isn't bad because that gets the engine further that way. I don't really need it that much at this point, but dear God, I'll take every inch I can get. All right. So that's actually not bad. And we're at 12.5 inches. Where it is right now, this to the end of the case is 12.5 inches. I have 17 inches to the back of the body. So holy cow, I have all the space in the world. This is nowhere near a problem, so it can come up to level with the frame. Right now it's down. I've got decent wrap on this. Little less than half, which is not perfect, but it's low horsepower, so it should be fine. Alignment is good. The casing is not going to be a problem with any of this stuff. So yeah, this engine is going to package so much nicer than the other one, and it's going to be such an easier job. So what's going to happen, I'm going to build myself a platform. It's going to be up a little bit more than this. I think I'm... Just so I'm not flying too close to the sun, I am still going to do the thing where the bottom of the case is going to be level with the bottom of the frame, and I'm going to build off the bottom to it. But that's just a little bit safer. Like I could even actually, like that wouldn't be too bad if I could go all the way down. Holy cow, I could have so much space with this. How's this fit? If I built this here, I could leave the engine basically assembled. The fuel tank wouldn't have to come off. That would make packaging very nice. And like, yeah, it's the lowest thing on the car, but again, I'm gonna be building steel. What the heck? Sorry, I just noticed, how the hell does this thing attach? Oh, it's got threaded bungs in the bottom, okay. I was like, where the hell do the bolts go through? They don't. They're going to threaded bungs in the bottom. So the thing I build is going to have slots in it so that I can adjust and get my chain tension right. It's the easiest way to do it. But I think I am going to come up just because it's going to be easier to build if I can. All right, here's what we've got. I took some of the 2x1 inch, cut it 3.5 inches, which is the width of the main case here, and then cut it, you know, on 2 corners so that I was left with 2 L's that are 2 inches by 1 inch. And then this is the same 1 inch stock I built the main frame out of. Welded that up there so that it's in the starting position. It's basically more or less flush with the case front and rear. Obviously I'm going to slot that for a little bit of wiggle room. And then these were measured out so that this would be at the about 12.5 inch distance. This is completely arbitrary. That's where I've decided to put it. And then height-wise, what I did was took more of that 2 inch and welded that to the bottom of it, so it's going to space it relative to the main frame rail. It's 2 inches, the bottom of the main frame rail, it's 2 inches down. That gets the engine solidly below everything. So this engine will be completely tucked in there. No modification will be needed to the fuel tank, the engine itself, or the air system. The only modifications that will need to happen are to the exhaust, and even then the body's going to be out here somewhere. So it shouldn't be too hard. I think I might even be able to just like I was talking before, cut this, move the thing down there. But you can see my chain lineup is pretty darn good. This wheel actually looks like it might be tilted slightly, so I might have to put a bar on this bolt and bring this whole assembly down a little bit and level it out, but we're going to figure that out once everything else is locked in. There's no clearance problem here, even with the clutch overlapping the gear. There's plenty of space around the back of the case here. The only slight bit is there. The engine may end up against the body, but if I have to bend that little corner down, that's fine. Again, no issues whatsoever down here. I really am happy that I went and spent the money and bought this engine because it just solved like 5 problems all at once. So let's get that welded on, let's get that locked down. And there we are, supported on its own. I'm still gonna do some gusseting, but actually, like, this is stupidly solid. Like, I'm pretty sure all the flexing I'm seeing is the tires. So I think honestly, the way it is, once obviously fully welded, it's probably overbuilt for my needs. So I think I'm going to scale back some of my plans. I don't think I'm going to put that other bracket up here, but I am definitely going to triangulate between this, this, and this. And then over on this side, we're going to triangulate between this, this, and this over here. You saw me assemble it and then cut it off and put it back on again. What it was there were a couple of welds from welding the nut on and from welding these two pieces together on the back that hadn't been ground down properly. So the whole thing was cocked down. That was part of my alignment issue over here. It's not all of it. The wheel's still a little off, but that was part of my alignment issue. So I took it all apart, ground those down, ground down the welds I'd put on, and re-welded it. So it's a little bit better now. It's now actually flush and level relative to the rest of the chassis. But it's slowly becoming more and more of a go-kart and less of a rolling box. So yeah. Super happy with that. That's all. I burned myself. Turns out if you've just welded a 2-inch piece to a 1-inch piece, that 1-inch piece is really hot. This is all coming together really great. I really like that. I like this design. I was always a little unsure, how am I going to do this? I like this design. This is, elegant isn't the right word, but simple but effective. Definitely it hits that. So yeah, let's get some more welding going. We have our engine in place. We have it secured. I've got a gusset coming up this way, tying that into this, and then I've got another gusset going this way because I realized I also have to account for deflection in this direction. I didn't end up putting one on this side because it's rock solid. It's so overbuilt. So for the moment, fab back there is done. Next thing is steering and pedals. These are going to need to be lengthened. I'm going to have to mount the steering shaft through here. I am not doing offset because everything is so tight that I don't want to have it where somebody can't get their foot in easily. It's going to, if I center the steering, yes, I'll have to re-drill the dashboard, but it'll just give everything a little bit more room. I do have to run the steering under, possibly through this bar, just because the body sits here. So steering's got to be below it. Otherwise it's, you know, going to come out somewhere over here, and that just wouldn't work. And then these are my pedals that are going to need to be mounted because the steering's going to be here-ish, maybe a little higher. Pedal's going to have to be to distance, maybe on this side. Oh, can I just punch a hole in this tube? Oh yeah, okay, that's exactly how that pedal's designed to work. All right, for the front end, I've got these bearings for the shaft to ride in. One's going to be down here, one's going to be up here, and they've got some, it's hard to do one-handed because I don't want to do it easily, but they've got some pivot within this housing. There we go. So they don't have to be perfect, like in line, because I can tweak that a little bit. So I'm going to mount this one up here, and I'm going to do it by welding like 2 tabs coming down. The bolts are going to go in, and then what I can do is bend those tabs to whatever angle I need down here to meet up with this one, and then once they're where I need them to be, I can always gusset them to lock them in place. And I'm going to do something similar down here, where I'm going to run some tabs to like do something like that and get myself in line. It's actually going to be over here because the center line's right where this weld is here. And then that'll be a pretty easy way to mount this. And like I said, I can gusset those if I feel like they're not strong enough, but I feel like the solid steel shaft going through them is going to keep them fairly in place. And then once I've got that in place, I'm going to have to make a little piece that comes off that these can go into because they need to be up from the center line to turn. The taller it is, the more turning you get for the amount of wheel you turn. So we're going to have to play with that. I'm going to try and make the steering fairly slow, I think, which means it's going to be down closer and it's going to take more turning of the wheel to get the tires to turn. But I'm going to make that tab the piece there super long so I can drill more holes in it, and then once I find the one I like, I can cut off the excess above. But I think I'm going to go get dinner first. I just realized I've been working on this for half the day. Before I went and got dinner, I needed to see. So I can fit my fingers between the top, like barely smash one finger between the top of the fuel cap and the body. So there's plenty of clearance there. There's a ton of space here, and yeah, look at that. It's like nowhere near it. Let's see how this floor fits. As I noted before, there's only one position it actually would bolt on in this dimension. And that's not bad. There's actually a surprising amount of space around that. Like, that's pretty good. This corner is going to interfere with the bar that's got to go across on top of those. But it's really close. What I might be able to do is put this like that, essentially. Like bring that down, put more of a bend in it, and essentially have this down here. And then off that hole there, just run a tailpipe out. And then that'll get all that hot exhaust from under. But holy crap, there's so, after all that panic about space, there is so much room. Obviously, this is going to have to get turned around so it faces any useful dimension. But yeah, wow. There is so much more room in there than I thought. How do I... That's going to be interesting, especially with the exhaust here. Okay, I am not going to notch that thing and try and get it up as high as I was talking about before, just because of how low this already hangs. Because this pillow block, like, yeah, that's... I can completely have it up under the dashboard without being in a position, I think, where I'm going to have to worry about that. But I can always trim that corner if I have to in the end. This is going much slower than I thought, but I'm having to do a lot more engineering and figuring out than I thought. You know, I foolishly thought, oh, I'll buy a existing go-kart and plop this body on it. I have to build a little bit of stuff, maybe move one of the axles forward or back a little bit. But none of this is quite the way it would be on a normal go-kart, just enough to kind of screw me. Because all the go-kart plans I was looking at, these frame rails go further back, and you just put a plate on top of them that the motor bolts to. Super easy, super simple, your engine up. But in this, that would have brought the engine up 2 inches, and you know, we've already established how little space I have. But yeah, cool. Oh, I'm so excited now. This is really starting to come together and look like it can be a thing. Another day. Let me catch you up on a couple things that happened off camera. My partner came out and helped me. I mostly needed their help with stabilizing this to get this axle better aligned. I thought I got it right, but it ended up that it was tipped up a little. So we took all of this off, put a big honking bar on it, tried to just bend it. Because I was smart, used a grade 8 bolt, that didn't work. So we put the infrared heater on it to heat it up so I could bend it down a little. And I was using this little digital angle gauge. These are great because you can set it on something. You can put it on there, set a gauge, and then it'll tell you the angle of this relative to that. So it's not a, is it 0 or is it not 0? It doesn't matter what angle anything is, it just tells you relative angles, which is very helpful. You're working on random weird shit. So I had it over here, I reset it. Come on. I don't know what the heck. Come on, what's going on? Okay. So I can set it here, zeroed it out, and then set it on the axle. And before I did anything, I was like 2.5 degrees up, which is not a lot, but it's enough to, you know, when everything's so tiny, to be notable. So I heated this up and I bent it down and I set that on it, and I thought I got it zeroed out. And then I realized the bolt was melting into it. So it was level because it was slowly melting into the bolt. So that's what this little piece of metal was for, because then I could put this here, and then I could put that on there, and then it wouldn't melt into it. And we got it better. It's now under 1 degree, but it's still not fitting super great. So I think part of the problem is this is not necessarily straight relative to everything else, like the brake assembly. It feels like it should be kicked out more. But it's definitely better. Also, this gear is not straight, and I don't know if that's my attachment to this or if it's just not straight, because I've had conversations about the quality of that. We've had conversations about the quality of the go-kart parts that I'm using on this. But that was the one thing. That's better. I will probably mess with it some more. Is that I kicked that piece of foam and this fell out of it. This is a mounting plate for that engine to give it the same bolt pattern as that engine, the bigger one, the normal one. My design would have been very different if I'd had this plate. For one thing, it's got the bolt pattern for the engine on it already, so it would have been a lot easier in that regard, but also I probably would have designed it around that, so this could take any standard engine. This does raise the engine up a little bit, and I think at that point it might be just bumping the body, but still not too bad because, you know, I do have a little bit of height in these if I really had to. Mostly I'm just annoyed because this would have changed that design a lot. It made it a lot easier because with this bolted on, the bolt holes would have all been visible from above. I haven't decided yet if I'm completely rebuilding this or not. So what we're doing instead is we're going to get the front steering together, hopefully. The biggest question is if I have something I can use to extend these or not, because each of these needs to be about 2 inches longer than they are now to account for the stretched frame. But first, I've got a couple of these pillow blocks like I've talked about, and I'm going to need one mounted somewhere around like here or something like that, and another one mounted up here. The plan is just simple metal tabs that I can bolt this to and then bend it to whatever angle I need. Same thing down here. And then once I have the steering shaft in and all of that locked down, I can add little gussets or something so that they can't move. But realistically, they're not going to be able to remove once the solid shaft is in there, so they may not be necessary. So I continue to be impressed with the shittiness of these parts. Like, every single thing, it seems like, from this company, either they're shitty about declaring what fits and what doesn't, or the parts themselves are crap. Because these pillow blocks, the nuts seem to not fit super great. Like they're going on really tight. So I went and checked them on my thread checker. You know, this was a 5/16 18 coarse thread, but it didn't thread into the thread checker well. And I'm like, okay, so I guess the problem is just that they've got poor quality threads. Fine, you know, I checked them against the metrics and whatnot, whatever. So I went and took the nut that came with it and kind of rammed it on there, and I just had to back it off because I wanted to change out the tab. And the threads are just gacked to hell now. And I'm like, how the fuck could it be that bad? Well, I went back and checked the nut. The nut's 5/16 24 fine thread. The bolt 5/16 18 coarse thread. So they're literally selling parts with mismatched hardware in them. So I've just destroyed, utterly destroyed this unique specialized bolt that's supposed to be, you know, specifically for this purpose. So, yay, I've now got the right nut on it. Of course, the other one's got the wrong nut rammed down on it. So I'm just going to have to do the best I can, at least for now. I think I might be able to use a modified carriage bolt, if I'm lucky. But I'm just so fucking, like every other problem we've had with this stuff. And now here we go. They literally can't sell parts with matched hardware in them. Just absolutely astounding. I think why I'm so pissed too is I bought from a, you know, actual American company that sells actual go-kart parts, as opposed to just piecing it together from, you know, Chinese crap. And I'm not usually a big, oh, you gotta buy American, because American is no guarantee of quality anymore either. But I figured, you know, well, if I'm buying go-kart parts, it's going to be easier if I can all order it from the same place, but also, like, if what their deal is classic go-kart and the parts for them, they'll sell me the right parts. Made a big deal about their American. They made a giant fucking deal about the fact that they're Christian by including their Christian fucking advertising in the thing. Again, I got nothing against Christians. I got problem with people who shove any religion down my throat. This is your Christianity? Taking people's money and selling them shitty parts? This is I should be a member. I should believe what you believe. This is what you believe. Religion's not morality. Thank fucking Christ. All right, we got steering. That's all still just mostly tacked in place. Obviously, I'm going to finish that up. But 2 tabs mounted here. Interestingly, when this was level, this bearing had a ton of pivot in it to the point where the steering shaft smacked into the bar. But when I put some bend on these, it moved it back just enough that not only is this now obviously mostly straight, but it doesn't hit the bar anymore. So that was cool. Down here, I ended up mounting them on here. That just, what it was because these are different thicknesses. If I tried to mount it here or here, I was going to have to put in a spacer. But if I mounted them on top, I could just make this one slightly longer than that one and solve the whole problem. So that's all in there. They're not quite level, but it doesn't matter. And then these got cut and extended by 2 inches. I would have preferred to sleeve these, but I didn't have anything that would sleeve right, and it's just enough of an odd measurement because it's a metric thing that the odds that I could get something with the right ID without a bunch of hassle was small enough that I decided to go this way. Obviously, these both got heavily chamfered, and these are really hot welds, as you can see, to get them to sink in there and really hold that together, and I'm pretty confident in that. And then this plate got cut out of some of that nice beefy stuff. And you can see the welds on that. This is the only place I'm actually even slightly nervous, is just because this bar is so damn big. I'm not, yeah, it looks like I got a lot of heat into it, but I'm not 100% sure. I may come back and drill out here a nice big, wide, deep thing, and then burn in weld in there to rosette weld that too. I was thinking about drilling and tapping it, but then I realized it doesn't matter if I have a bolt here, if the welds snap, because then it'll just turn on the bolt, so it doesn't really make any difference. And then for all this, like, I got to make a big tab and whatnot. This is as low as I can really get them. Like, you know, I can go a little bit lower, but not by much. And on this side, it turns hard enough to smack into the frame. On this side, it'd do the same, except this tab is just enough down that that hits. But if I literally ground that bolt flat, that side would do the same thing. It would smack right in. So that's my maximum steering. It's perfectly good. This I'm not super happy with, for obvious reasons. If that looks like it's going to be an issue, what I'll do, I think what I'm actually likely to do, just given how hard this already swings, obviously I'm going to see what the turning signal looks like, but it might just make more sense to increase the size of this stop here. Maybe drop a nut over it and put a tiny weld so that the stop ends up, you know, just shy of the frame. I talked about stepping the frame in. I don't think it's worth it because, dear God, that is such a tight turn already. It does not need to be able to turn tighter than that because the thing's going to then just about pivot in its own circle. So this is awesome. This is great. This is all done. So what I'm going to need to do now, and it's going to wait till the body goes on so I can get my proportions a little better, is this bar needs to get cut down, and then I need to make a mount plate for the steering wheel because it's got 3 like bolt holes on it. I'm going to make a little circular mount out of something a little thicker so that it's really definitely going to weld well onto that. And then that's going to get welded on here. I may drill it out and slide it down onto there and weld it. That will lock these 2 bearings onto this shaft. There's no better way for me right now to do it without machining and other work that I don't feel like doing. I'm not too worried about that because these 2 bearings can still be unbolted. This assembly can come out of the chassis for like painting and whatnot, even if I can't get the steering shaft out of the 2 bearings. And the odds that one of these bearings is going to go bad anytime in the near future, because they're not, these are designed for an axle. These are designed for a lot of RPMs and torque being put through it. So being a steering shaft, the bearings are not going to be working hard at all. So it steers with a chain. It theoretically goes. Theoretically, it's ready to roll. It is ready to roll, so that lets me answer a question. Have to be careful because there's a spear mounted right here. Will my gut fit past the spear? Ah. So, there is a chance, obviously it's going to depend a little bit on pedal placement, but there is a chance that I will be able to drive the chassis. Obviously we've already established the body's out of the question, but I think, obviously when this, you know, if I've got pedals, I can kind of operate pedals. I have to bizarrely actually scooch forward for that to work, because if I try and scooch all the way back, my legs will end up just floating here. But I could theoretically, not well, but enough for testing. I will be able to drive the chassis of this, so I'll get some fun out of it myself directly. But as previously established, I'm not driving the whole thing. I thought, I actually genuinely thought about, well, what if I make the whole body tip up? Like, or funny car, one way or the other. And then get in, and then lower the body down over me. But even that won't work, because even if this bar is not here, like say I take this bar out, which is the thing that absolutely keeps me from getting my legs underneath, you know, and build a vertical, you know, put a support bar across there, build something vertically up that supports this bearing. My legs end up past the axle in a way that, one, becomes a steering issue, because I'd have to rejigger the steering in some way. Possibly I'd have to flip this whole thing around and run the steering shafts down and hope that they don't bind, even though the angles are going to be really bad for that. Or I'd have to build like cups over them to protect me from getting caught in them, or vice versa, and then put the pedals out there. But I don't think there's actually enough body to put the pedals past the steering. So there's really no realistic version. Like, the only way I could ride this thing is if I got rid of all this framework, basically forward of this back piece, supported this on its own, and then I could drive it sort of splay-legged, but my knees need to be about here. And once I take that much of it apart, What's supporting the body? Nothing. Also, at what point are you just kind of, at what point does it become ridiculous in a bad way? If I cut this all up and modify it 5 different ways, get myself to just barely cram in there, and my knees are rubbing the fiberglass insides, and I can barely push the pedals and whatever, that's not going to actually be a fun thing to ride. It'll be entertaining that I could do that, but then it's going to, every single time I want to get in and out of it, it's going to be tip the thing forward, hope I don't get my head caught, blah, 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 blah. So it's just not, it's not worth it as much as I want it to be a thing. But it is kind of a thing. Actually, you know what? Could I? Oh, see, that's how I can drive it. Even dumber. But that becomes a drivable thing. I wonder. Ooh. We're going to try something. I have a slight fear that piece sticking out in the front is going to catch on the body. I got to push this forward a bunch to get the tail in. Front end's up because it's hitting the steering shaft, but I don't think that'll interfere too badly with what I'm testing. Now, yeah, you know what? If this had a floor in it in the front, I could put my heels on the floor, splay my legs a little to give myself some room because the steering wheel's right here. And then I could drive this from up here. And that actually gives me an idea. I can put a seat in it, make it a kid go-kart. I can put a fake convertible boot up here, but pad that. Obviously, if I'm doing this, I'm going to build more bracing under there so that it's all properly supported. But if I had a fake convertible boot back here, that becomes the grown-up seat. And then there's still the kid seat, and it's rideable. Rationalize faster. I will definitely need, one, it's going to need a floor, obviously. I'm going to need to test this for sure. I'm going to need to cut out more of the dashboard. Originally I was just going to cut a little hoop here to drop it over the steering column, but I'm realistically going to have to take the sides up to get, because once this drops down another inch, 2 inches, that becomes a problem again. But I'm okay with that. If I slice the dash off, basically at the height it needs to be to clear the steering column, I think I'm good with that. Because it's already damaged. Like, there's already going to be a giant gaping hole over here and whatnot. It's not going to be anything. Very little of value will be lost, and if I can make a drivable go-kart as a result, I'll consider that unbelievably worthwhile. Yeah, because right now I have, like, I can put my feet up on the bar and tip my foot down, and like, I really, really push. I can get my foot flat enough that I can feel the nut for the spindle under it. So to be on the pedals, I'd be slightly inboard, slightly down, so more like this. I could absolutely operate the pedals that way. They can even be a little bit too far out. I already talked about I'm going to put multiple pedal mounting holes, so that's a self-solving problem. But holy crap! We have a solution! I can be an idiot and drive this little thing. I'm so excited. I'm beyond the effing moon about that. It's still going to be ridiculous. Let me get the steering wheel. I can't put it right in the right place. Take this off. I'll have to drive it like this, but given the amount of turning it needs, that's not an issue. It'll be tight, like it'll be rubbing my legs. Somebody with bigger calves than me probably wouldn't be able to ride it. But that's what I'm gonna do. because I've found this solution, one of the things I'm doing is I'm hitting those 2 braces I put in. So I'll move those back. You know, I'll put braces like those further back, where, like here, where they're not relevant. And where those braces are, maybe I can build a more box, you know, drop it straight down and then over. Maybe I can even bow it up. Like, I don't know. I can do something more to give myself that little bit of extra calf room, because that'll also help with steering wheel clearance. But yeah, you know, the steering wheel's like here. That's absolutely doable. It's gonna look stupid, but that's fine. I have looked much stupider for less good reasons. Yeah, the biggest thing is I'm gonna be putting more support in back here, because this bar that I'm sitting on is actually touching here and here. I'm floating in the middle. The fiberglass isn't really moving, but I don't like how much weight I'm going to be putting in. Oh no, actually it is. I have flexed the body down. So, gas cap is from the bar. Not very far. So what I'm going to have to do is build a platform back there. It extends out a little bit, maybe with little down riggers, that has a cutout so you can get the gas cap. And then either that platform is going to get built up a little bit more, or we're going to use a piece of plywood with a bit of, the main sensible thing would be to use a piece of plywood and shape it a little bit to better match the curve of the body, so that the body doesn't have to do much of, you know, so that more of the body's default suspended. If it's got that general curve, even if it has to flex a little bit, it'll hold more of it in less flex. And like I said, I'll build a little convertible boot. It'll just be probably piece of thin plywood, bit of foam, bit of whatever, the same upholstery I use for the interior, just to give me something to sit on that's not the paint. It'll be, I don't even care about the comfort of it, it'll just look nicer, it'll look more right. I ended the last video with, oh man, I don't get to ride it, I guess I'll figure something out. And I'm ending this video with, holy crap, I get to ride it, I just have to figure it out. But that's going to be it for now. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.